You know, I've really grown to like the international break. It gives me a rest. It gives you a rest. It gives us a rest. And when you come back after a couple of days break and you look back over the news, you realize how on earth did I manage to do shows every single day through these breaks? Because my goodness, it can be boring. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is indeed the Arsenal News Show. Joining you every single morning at 8 a.m, except the last couple of days, which of course I'm taking the opportunity, as I will be continuing to do so over the course of the next international breaks that will be coming in November and March, of course, to take the weekend off. But I'm glad to be joining you again this morning and being back to the usual scheduled programming from Monday through to the foreseeable. The next break, of course, as I mentioned, will be during that international break, barring any early press conferences or flights or anything that need to happen, of course, as well. But good morning to you all. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. It is greatly appreciated you being here and listening. If you could drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, and turn those notifications on so you never miss a show. I hope you've had a really good weekend. I hope that it was good for you. I really hope indeed that you've had a fantastic time and relaxation and rest and recharge. And I want to give a particular shout out to Vincenzo, who 3 days ago left this comment on the video, who says, just say hi everyone, instead of saying all of the names in the video. So Vincenzo, this is for you. Hello everyone, especially Steve Stone. Good morning to you, to Amira, to Barry T, to Paul, to Franklin, Mohammed and Manny. Good morning to Glenn and Matt G, to Martin and Mohammed again. I'm not even, I think I'm just going to read everyone's name. I'm going to go extra. Paul, good morning to you, to John, to Jamil, to Gooner76. We've got Christopher and Tony. We've got Errol in the chat box. We've got Blackshine and Brad. We've got Dr. DR. We've got Knowledge and Natty Tom and Steve and other Steve. Loads of Steves in the chat today. Steve Stone, Steve Souza, Steve Hartland. Love to see it. Lars, good morning to you, to Evan, to Gary, Melissa, Carrie Ann, Andy, good morning. Runs with Cows, Pat, Daniel, good morning to you, Granddaddy Gooner Paul. We got Smithicus, we got Logan and Daniel, we got Paul, we got Brian, we got Baz, we got Gun Adult, who says this. Tom, while you were away, rumours are rife with bribery allegations against you. Apparently you bake cookies for the press box each match day. 1, do you bake them? And 2, what cookies are they? Well, so this is an interesting rumor, because I have to both deny and confirm this story. Now, if you live in the UK and you happen to live near us Marks and Spencer's, it's very middle class, okay? And I don't mean to come across middle class in this little monologue, but it's going to sound a little middle class. But not for the games, but for the some and not all, I should stress, only a little handful of press conferences throughout the season. Sometimes I bring cookies into the press conference. Sometimes. I haven't done it always. I've done it like a few times in the last 6 months or so. But it harks back to my teacher days. And in the staff room, when I was a teacher, one of the things that we would do is now and again people would bring in baked goods, basically. And I don't mind trying to start a little trend off in the press room of bringing in the cookies. Now, if you've ever had M&S cookies, you will know that they are the best that you can get, period. Other brands are available, of course, but there is no doubt in my mind that M&S cookies are the best cookies. And it's more, to be honest, these days, I do it more just to see the look on Art de Roche's face when he sees them in the press room than anything else. So I haven't seen what Benji has said, but I will be going back to listen to Inside Arsenal and listening to what he said. I assume it must have been on their chat on their last episode, but I'm curious to see what Mr. Benj has said. I will tell you this, right? The other day, I don't know what game it was. It was a couple of weeks ago, and I asked Benj if he was going to the press conference, and he turned around to me and said, only if you bring the cookies. Now, I'll have you know that I did, in fact, leave slightly early on that day to get up to, because there's a Marks and Spencer's about 5 minutes around the corner from the Arsenal training ground. I go early to the M&S, pick up the cookies, and on Friday the 3rd of October, which was the day of the press conference for which game was it? Let's go into results. Vincenzo's going to be fuming I'm taking this long on my intro. but I'm allowed. It was before the West Ham game. Now, I bought them. Guess who didn't show up? Guess who didn't turn up that day for the press conference? Well, a certain Mr. Benj didn't. And then when I said, I bought you cookies, he said, cake needed next time, maybe a Colin the Caterpillar. I said, Liberties, are you going to be at the West Ham game tomorrow? And he said, nah, mate, big games only for me. You want to share information about me, Mr. Benj? I'll share information about you. So, West Ham Arsenal, it's just not big enough for Mr. Benj these days. Goodness gracious me, terrible behaviour. Terrible behaviour. Anyway, do make sure you drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, there's notifications turned on so you never miss a show. Right, let's jump into today's story, shall we? And we begin with a reflection on the weekend's action against Brighton in the WSL. First thing I want to say about this game is the madness that it was played on Sunday. You may have noticed that there were 0 WSL games played on Saturday, which during the men's international break, you would think that this is a great opportunity for games to be played in the WSL on a Saturday, bring more attention to them, broadcast them, and get more attention, as I say. And Charlotte Henry, who does some writing, of course, around the women's game, put a fantastic kind of tweet out about this and wrote a piece on the edition. If you want to go and read it, I did tweet out the link to it. And Tim Stillman, of course, as well, arguably in the best coverage of the women's game that you can find from an Arsenal perspective. Tim also made comments about this and said, I'm no expert on broadcast slots, but I can't get my head around no WSL games on a Saturday during a men's international break. Maybe the grandstand weekends during international breaks were not sustainable, but just feels like a waste to have nothing on Saturday. And absolutely that's the case as well. And Charlotte tweeted, said, why are there no WSL games today? It's an absolute shambles, a huge opportunity missed. There are big games and other topic women's leagues taking place, but nothing here. And goes into the article, which is to do in many parts because of the 3 p.m. embargoed blackout of games, of course, as well. It does seem absolutely mad, doesn't it? Like, it does seem mad that we find ourselves looking very much a Saturday of great opportunity to highlight the women's game and none are broadcast. It just seems like a big waste to me. But anyway, Olivia Smith, her deflected effort early in the game against Brighton was enough to separate the two teams. It wasn't the best of games again, but Arsenal did get back to winning ways after so many games without having done that. 2 defeats and 2 draws, of course, I think in their last 4 games, but they have indeed stopped the slump, stopped the slide, and managed to get back to winning ways at home at the Emirates, as it was against Brighton. So positive news there. Positive news for Jack Wilshere, who is set to become the new Luton Town head coach. And a massive congratulations to Jack Wilshere, of course, who turned down the opportunity to return to Arsenal's youth team under 21's job. There was discussions over him taking over. Max Porter then took over that role, but Jack Wilshere turned that role, I believe, down from what the reports were circulating in the summer to chase the opportunity of staying at the senior level and getting opportunities to manage at the senior level. And after doing brilliant work with the under-18s at Arsenal and then, of course, moving to Norwich in an assistant capacity, he is now set to become a head coach of his first senior club, and that is going to be Luton Town. So a massive congratulations to Jack Wilshere. Of course, he'll be linking up with some players that he will be certainly, or should be at least, familiar with, like Ruel Walters, of course, who was formerly with the Arsenal Academy and is now playing for Luton. So massive congratulations to Jack. And I look forward indeed to seeing what Jack gets up to with Luton. So very much looking forward to that. Also, Martin Zubimendi, amongst others, Calafiori in action for Italy, Zubimendi in action with Marino, of course, for Spain. And Sid Lowe of The Guardian wrote a brilliant interview piece with Martin Zubimendi. If you've not haven't a chance yet to check it out, I did also retweet, at least I believe I did retweet it and replied to it on his X feed. But he did a fantastic piece alongside Martin Zubimendi, further talking about kind of the reason why he chose Arsenal, the reason why he's moved to Arsenal. And I'd recommend you just go and read the whole article because it is a really fantastic piece of work by Sid, arguably, if not the best coverage of Spanish football specifically, and he talks again about, the importance of Arsenal's style of play, about his style of play, how it fits. And again, at the weekend, Zubimendi had a absolutely fantastic performance. He played the majority of their fixture against Georgia in a 2-0 victory. Massive congratulations again to Zubimendi for seemingly working his way so well into the squad. They will have another game tomorrow against Bulgaria. Whether or not he starts that game as well remains to be seen, but there is a good chance that he will. But Zubimendi is doing some very, very exciting things indeed, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Now, the final topic, and as I say, there's been kind of little things here and there, not loads. Martin Ødegaard travelled to Norway. There's no update yet on his injury. We'll get an update, of course, from Mikel Arteta on Friday, but hopefully the fact that he has travelled to Norway is a good sign. That he's going to be okay, and at least in the short term. Otherwise, he would have been staying to work on some meticulous rehabilitation, of course. So hopefully everything's okay there, and we get some better updates on Martin's recovery on Friday from Arteta. But beyond that, so far, touch wood, we haven't had any other bad news on the international front. But a topic that I kind of want to talk about in this and in part 2 as well with you all is around this idea of the content online that surrounds Arsenal, and whether or not that content is changing, be that on YouTube, be that on other platforms as well. But I think that we've seen some interesting clips, topics, changes to Arsenal media. Of course, we've had a lot of change at AFTV we've seen recently as well. Not necessarily delve too much into this realm of content creation or the soap opera that can be Arsenal content creation, but there's been some quite high profile discussions go on. We've seen on the overlap recently Jamie Carragher being questioned about the Arsenal media narrative, or whether there's a bias against or for certain clubs, particularly against Arsenal. That's come out, and then Jamie Carragher's had to kind of defend his position on the Ødegaard celebratory comments in relation to Enzo Maresca's celebration. We've seen Turkish and James and Graham all leave AFTV recently, and then a new brand of show being organised, which obviously I think takes things more in a direction that we used to see maybe, say, 7, 8, 9 years ago. So I kind of want to get your thoughts about a lot of kind of the direction of Arsenal content online, and particularly kind of what your feelings are in as a respectable way. Because I know people have very strong opinions on different topics. So if you could, of course, keep things respectful around this, I would also appreciate it, because it otherwise just doesn't produce a fair, balanced chat around this topic. But I know that people feel very strongly about certain aspects of content creation online. But I feel as though something is changing around Arsenal. There almost seems, especially with kind of comes to kind of the narrative about Arsenal Football Club and online, it almost feels like Arsenal fans have kind of had enough. It feels like Arsenal fans are taking something of a stand against kind of how Arsenal are sometimes talked about on different platforms. Fan media in general, not just from an Arsenal perspective. There was a show as well, I think it was on TalkSport. Simon Jordan was talking to a Rangers fan media content creator. Some of the comments he made about fan media. Now, bear in mind, of course, TalkSport has a fan media network, of which I am and we are the Arsenal representatives of on their fan network. That came across pretty scathing. Now, one of the good things about one of the reasons why I agreed to be part of, obviously, that fan network was I was told that I don't have to change my opinion. I can be critical of things that are said by people on TalkSport, and I have definitely done that. I've also said that I won't be appearing on shows with Roy Jennings anymore after his comments about mental health, specifically relating to some of Chelsea's players, particularly in the context of, mental health, and, of course, those footballers that have very sadly lost their lives through taking their own lives in the not so distant past in relation to mental health. And I never feel it is appropriate to disregard mental health ever in any kind of context around this topic. So I have been critical about certain elements of that. So don't feel like there is any kind of ulterior motive in anything I say. I'm allowed to say as and what I want, be it praising or critical of comments that are said on that platform. And I think that there is a very interesting kind of development around the way in which Arsenal are being talked about now online and what's going on online about it. So I'm going to go to part 2 and get some of your thoughts, of course, as well. So we're going to go to part 2 now and get some of your questions and thoughts and more right after this. Okay, this is part 2 of today's show. I really do think that it is time, of course, to be able to look further into this topic of Arsenal consecration, which when we go into international breaks and we have kind of these points where we can talk a lot more broadly about things, because there's not loads going on in the world of Arsenal, and we have to be honest about that. You can try and create shows every day, and that's what I like doing, a little break now and again as well around the international break also. So let's go to let's scroll up in the chat a bit more. Things can only get Berta in the chat box says, I've quit any rage bait, clickbait type content. It's very hard to escape that these days. I do feel as though that we're very much of a point of view that clips and small segments and short form content today is very, very much designed to create division, anger, an annoyed reaction. It's supposed to poke the bear, right? That's how it feels. Now, I miss genuine analysis, which is part of the reason why I'm so frustrated that James and Graham in particular. Now, I have a lot of time and respect for Turkish as well, and I've reached out to Turkish and spoken to Turkish briefly as well, just to wish him all the best in what he goes on to do, because I think he'll be very much missed at FTV. But specifically on James and Graham, like tactical shows and analysis and kind of going deeper into what happens in a game of football, that type of content in general, across the board, not just AFTV, but in general, is almost being lost at times. It's certainly being, I think, shouted down now by a lot of short form content on loads of different platforms that are leaning into what benefit you can get from poking bears, basically. That's the phrase I'm going to use. It is definitely kind of the way in which things are going. Poking the bear that is the online fan base. And you have to admit that we as Arsenal fans, right, as Arsenal supporters, we are without question the most easily rattled. I think we have to own that. There are other clubs that have very easily rattled fans as well. I think we all know that Liverpool supporters in particular, although I think Manchester United fans, less so. I mean, Spurs, we kind of laugh along with the jokes that you do in the natural rivalry of things. But I don't necessarily think that Spurs fans are as even rattled as particularly us or Liverpool supporters. I feel as though there is something about the Arsenal fan base that really is an opportunity for outlets to be able to try and grab the attention of Arsenal fans. And Arsenal currently sit top of the table right now. Arsenal are the best team in the country right now. They are playing the best football in terms of being the most competitive. You might not be in terms of entertainment, but certainly in terms of how to win games, they're playing the best football, hence why they sit top of the league. And it still feels as though like that's not the case. Do you see what I'm saying? It still feels like that's not the case. It still feels like it shouldn't be that way right now. And if you're top of the league, and you can have your comments and you can talk about Arsenal in a way in which you think they can get better, they can improve this aspect and this aspect and this aspect. But the fact that Arsenal sit top of the league is absolutely mad to me, that there would then be this utterly crazy, ridiculous kind of negative angle, if you like, around Arsenal, because Arsenal currently sit top of the table. And I kind of find myself sitting here in a situation whereby Arsenal should be getting a lot more praise. And I know that I come across as very uber positive content creator sometimes. I get that. But I just can't quite get my head around why there's so much now negativity still in terms of content creation on Arsenal. Question marks about Gyökeres, for instance, to the nth degree. I think it's fine to write pieces around being, what can he do better, what's doing well, and be balanced. I think Sam Dean's piece in Telegraph was particularly balanced. I didn't really see an issue with that. But there's a lot of kind of talk about, Gyökeres not necessarily hitting the ground running well enough already, not giving him the time of day, not giving him the patience to be able to kind of adjust and adapt. And for Arsenal, adapt to him. Do you get that sense as well? because I feel like I'm getting that sense. Manali Cream says more authentic voices becoming more private and underground. Yeah. Do you feel as though that sometimes the more grounded, objective voices are getting shouted down by the kind of chaotic level voices? Because I get a sense that that maybe is a worrying way, that if it's not already gone that way, but that is the way that things are still moving. Let's go to what Sabre says. Tom saying that he wants tactical content, all while a couple of months ago said it was cringe given what he knows now. You can't undermine things and then complain about people. No, I didn't. I think, again, Sabre, you've completely misunderstood what I've said. So what Sabre is referring to is a comment that I made a little while ago saying that I felt that it was a little bit cringe to go into the finer details and talk as if I was like a coach. I don't think there's anything wrong with talking about moves or moments in games or things that we could do better. But now I know certain levels of how coaching and how detailed it is and how it goes into, like, the level of detail coaching goes into. You can do tactical analysis at a base level, but what you can't do is you can't do tactical analysis and speak as if you've got coaching badges or that you know the finer details of what's going on at Arsenal. You can definitely do analysis of Arsenal's games and where mistakes were potentially made and what went wrong and how indeed that area can be improved. But what you can't do, what is cringe, is if you start talking about it at the level that you are either a former player or a former coach or have got a level of insight that you don't have. Now, some people do have it. That's when it's not cringe. It's when people do have that level of insight, when people do have their coaching badges, when people do have an insight into the game and how it works. So, Sabra, unfortunately, you're mistaken there because you've obviously misconstrued and conflated two things that are not aligned. AJ says a lot of Arsenal fan content creation is quite toxic and clickbaiting, feeding on the negative only just to gain viewership. Truth be told, if you criticize the club more, you do get more followers. Do people feel that's true? Do we feel that being more critical leads to getting more attention? I feel it does. I feel that it is the simpler path to greater kind of hyperbole and attention. But at the same time, I don't think it's then fair to whitewash everybody with that same brush, because I think you can be more critical, but you're not doing it with a motive to get attention. I think it's possible to pinpoint when people are genuinely critical, genuinely have a point of view. So I'll give you an example. Me and Dan Potts, for instance, don't align on a lot of things, don't align on certain aspects of the club or the manager or certain players or whatever. But I don't for 1 second think ever that Dan is saying things for the sake of saying things. I know that when I have a conversation with Dan about Arsenal and that we disagree, what he's saying is his genuine opinion. What he's saying is what he genuinely believes. And while I question him on it, or question me on my thought, in fact, I'm going on with Potsy a little bit later on this morning. If you want to check it out, 11 o'clock UK time this morning. I think it's live. I don't think it's pre-recorded, but I might be wrong. But yes, I feel as though like I can have a conversation with somebody where I know that they're more critical or more scathing, perhaps, of Arsenal, and I can tell when it's legit and when at times it's not legit. And I know when I have conversations with Dan, for instance, it's 100% legit. 100% legit. If you remember, now a lot of you didn't like when we had, of course, Shane on the channel, and look, you're entitled to disagree with Shane's views, and I disagree vehemently with a lot of what Shane, of course, said, but we had a very genuine conversation at that show, and I like doing conversations like that because I like hearing different points of view. I like getting different, because I think if you lock yourself into an echo chamber, you lock yourself into only listening to people that agree with you. That's not conducive to any kind of positive environment about refining your opinion or being challenged on your opinion or be able to back up your opinion. And I also believe that Shane firmly believes everything that he says. I don't agree with most of it, but at no point did I ever think that he was saying things for the sake of saying things, if that makes sense. I feel as though he was saying things because he genuinely believes that. And what he has experienced, how he's viewed things through whatever lens, is how he has then come up with that point of view. So that's kind of where I'm at on kind of the examples of particularly people that I've had conversations with who don't align with how I view things. But I think that they're genuine. I don't question their genuinity. And I know that Shane, for instance, has questioned my genuinity, but I hope in the conversation that we had that it kind of showcased that this is how I view things. It's not through any kind of, because one of the obvious accusations that I get, which I always find a little bit strange, is the one that you have to say certain things or you have to avoid saying certain things because you get access to press conferences. Now, it's not Arsenal that I get access through to press conferences, right? I get access to that because I work for Football London in the Mirror. That's what gets me accreditation and access to press conferences. And I've not had to change my opinion. I've not had to skew my view. I've not had to hold my tongue. I've not had to do anything that I've not wanted to do, ever. Not once have I ever had to change anything that I've wanted to say or write or ask or say once. I've not experienced that once, nor, I should add, have I ever experienced anybody being told they can't go to a presser anymore, or being banned, or being told what they've said. So, I mean, think about some of the questions we saw on some very sensitive topics in the summer transfer window. Think about the questions that we had regarding a number of different topics. They had to be asked. Are those people still at the next press conference? Yes, because we have freedom of press to be able to ask those questions. They're not always comfortable. They're not always, nice, happy questions. Sometimes you have to ask some really serious questions. I've got a question I want to ask at the next press conference, which I'm not obviously going to talk about now because I'm going to ask it on Friday, that I'm very curious to see what comes from it. So, unless someone else asks it, because it's quite a big topic at the moment, if you know the broader context of football in general at the moment, there is a broad context around certain aspects, and it does relate into Arsenal as well, specifically for certain reasons, which will come clear in the next week or so. But yeah, it's a very different vibe to what I think some people see those that have certain aspects or access to things like presses and games, etc. AG says, Tom, did you think in the future there will be anywhere in North London that Arsenal could build a 90 or 100,000 seater stadium? Very unlikely. The only reason for that is obviously the logistics around the stadium make it very challenging. They would have to dig down and make things incredibly steep, like the side of the stadium be very steep. So I don't think it's feasible. JKO says, you've definitely had to change what you ask, Tom, like maybe when someone else asked the question you've wanted to. Okay, that's fair enough. You've caught me there. That is a time where, yes, I have had to change my question because I'm not going to ask the same question. Although, to be fair, I have done that once completely by accident. Completely and utterly by accident. I ended up asking the same question that Amy Lawrence asked after a game. The reason why I asked that question is because I didn't hear Amy's question because I was typing frantically an answer to another question that Arteta said, and I didn't hear her ask the question. And then I asked him the question and actually got an answer when he didn't answer the first question. I don't know why, but that happened. But I listened back to it on the audio transcript when I'm transcribing afterwards. I was like, oh, Amy already asked that question, and I asked it again. But as I say, that's the only time I've ever asked the same question twice, and that's only because I didn't hear it the first time. Let's go to Gary says, I can't believe you've had to explain that, Tom. I thought it was obvious the reason that you get to press conferences because you work for Football London. The fact that you have to explain that says a lot. Well, I know, but some people genuinely believe that my view or my opinion or my praise or my criticism or lack of criticism for certain things comes from having the job I have. Some people genuinely believe that. And there's nothing I can say more than what I always say, which is that's not the case, because there's nothing more I can say about that, because there's a conspiratorial feeling about viewership of that instance that isn't going to change, unfortunately. Matza says, a time traveler from the future informs you that an Arsenal player has won this year's Ballon d'Or, but phased out of this timeline because he could tell you who it was and who would you put your money on. I mean, Bukayo Saka naturally stands out to me immediately for very obvious reasons. So yeah, I'd have to say Bukayo, which is really, it shouldn't be a boring answer, but it feels like it's a boring answer because it's just the obvious answer. But I think it has to be Bukayo Saka, right? Let's go to Lai says, whether an opinion is legit or not is not really the issue. The issue for me is the lack of perspective. A creator last season created content 2 days after the 3-0 Madrid win on Arteta's flops. I guess there's context in there about that. But I guess it's 2 days later. It's 48 hours on. But I get where you're coming from. Like, I get where you're coming from. If it was like in literally the day after, I'd maybe have more questions on it. But 48 hours after the game, does that make it all right? Gent next door says, no need to justify yourself. I don't feel like I'm justifying myself here. I just feel like we're kind of talking about just the context of the whole kind of like manner and demeanor of content at the moment. DJ says, I can't believe how few subscribers Arsenal Vision and Arsenal Squad have. I mean, to be fair, on YouTube, the Vision is, I mean, if you look at the numbers on an audio platform perspective compared to a lot, same with Arsblog, of course, they are podcasts more than they are YouTube shows. The numbers on a podcast level dwarf that of most, if not all, YouTube shows. It is worth wearing. Sophie, of course, who, by the way, sending all the love in the world to Sophie at this moment. She's going through some really tough stuff. I'm not going to go into the finer details of it. It's not my place to say, but just know that Sophie really needs your support right now, and really do, with some supportive messages being sent her way. Just, you don't need to be specific. You just need to say that you're with her and that she needs all of our support right now. So please do show all your love and support to Sophie. What is, again, that girl's been through so much crap over the last 24 months. So please, more than that, 3 years. So please do send her all the love and support that you can. But I agree with you. You know, channels like Sophie's, channels like Harry's, of course, you know, absolutely should be getting FKs. I think Latte Firm is a fantastic channel as well. That doesn't. All these channels that we're talking about here don't, in my opinion, get enough attention. You know, how can someone like Charles I couldn't even finish that sentence. Charles is great. Go and watch him. Bailey says, hi, Tom. Have you covered anything to do with the charge of ticket percentage that was given to United? No. And that's a fair question, actually. So Arsenal have been given a suspended £500,000 fine by the FA because of obviously what happened in last season's FA Cup drama with Manchester United. Arsenal breached the FA Cup rules because they were not able to give Manchester United their full 9,000 allocation. The club received only 7,956. It was a very strange game. Like, there was basically like an empty section in the top of the stadium where they should have been. There were safety concerns cited for why United did not receive the full 9,000 away allocation, with some of the seats in question due to the upper tier of the Emirates Stadium. Persistent standing is not permitted in the upper tier for safety reasons, and as such, away fans cannot be housed there. The infrastructure of the Emirates also means 9,000 away fans cannot all be placed in the lower tier, and that led to an issue over the remaining 1,000 seats. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen this time. Like, obviously, there are going to be games, I imagine, where that same allocation is, of course, allowed to whoever Arsenal play in the FA Cup at the Emirates. I remember the game vividly because I had Man United fans surrounding the press box. It was the strangest environment I've ever sat in at the Emirates Stadium, because usually I'm surrounded by Arsenal fans. And even in FA Cup games, I'm typically surrounded by Arsenal fans. But this time, the fans engulfed like part of the press box. It was so strange. It was such a strange one. But yeah, it was something to do with like entrances and problems with entrances, and yeah, it was just very, very strange. But yeah, Jacko says, now Tom, I get you on Charles. He's my favorite, if I'm honest. There's just something about his basic and normal feeling videos that's interesting. I still don't understand it myself. Charles is like, I love Charles's videos because they're just so honest. It's such honest content creation. News, break, questions from the comment section, done. Boom, there's your content. I love it. Sometimes you need that, just the genuinity of it all. It's great. Paul says, Man United gave us less than our full allocation when we played them last season, but they reported us for doing the same to them. I don't know about that, Paul. You have to send me the information on that. Iron says, I think it would be interesting to see if the lineup versus Fulham, it will be difficult away game, and we have to make the right, those bad results from last season. Absolutely. But yeah, I'm curious to see, of course, that game. And we'll talk more about, of course, Fulham as the week goes on. And the £500,000 fine, as Jen Next Door says, is a bit of a joke when they fine clubs much less money in terms of breaches of, potential racism. I get where you're coming from that, absolutely. Gary says, I honestly think that people who create content have a responsibility to reach a massive audience, and in so doing, they should be aware of what they say and how they say it. I do think there are people who abuse that. I think that's fair. I think that, if you do create content, you have an audience, there is a level of accountability, responsibility as well. I did this show very early in the morning, so I also recognize that most of the time families are listening to this, like mums and dads are going to be listening to this with young children, so I don't tend to swear on these shows. If you ever meet me in real life, you'll know that I swear quite a bit. So I don't swear on this show. I try not to swear on other shows as well, because I don't know what people's what's the word, kind of policy is, if you like. But I don't tend to swear on this show. But I'm not saying that you shouldn't swear on shows, but it's just kind of like, thinking about what time in the day you're doing a show, and then I guess but it's up to you. I don't think swearing's too much to go into on scrutiny, but certainly in terms of, how indeed you engage in things. And genuineness, says cancelled account, rather than not sure about genuinity. I thought it was genuinity. Maybe it is genuineness. Genuinity is not the standard English word. The correct word is genuineness. There you go. I've been proven wrong. And whenever I'm proven wrong, I hold my hands up. Genuineness. Genuinity sounds better, though. I will say that. I prefer that genuinity than genuineness. But yes, we'll go with genuineness from now on. Tom, I'm not reading that comment out, but it did make me giggle. And speaking of fantastic YouTube channels, Mr. Deluded Gooner, of course, who's with us this morning in the chat box as well. TCFC indeed. Hit the likes, folks. Absolutely. Make sure you subscribe to DG. Of course, smashing over 70,000 subscribers these days. Hardest working man on the platform. Brilliant stuff from DG, as always. I have to hop you on the channel at some point, DG. We need to get a conversation. And also, I see Clive in the chat this morning saying, negativity pays the bills, I'm afraid. To be fair, I think there's definitely strong arguments these days that there is a level of benefit to get from being divisive and rage baity and, all of that stuff. We know that. We're not idiots. We're not fools. We know that there is a benefit that comes alongside it. But I like to think that there is ways to have a career in the space, and you don't have to do that. You don't have to be a character. You don't have to dial up your personality to 11 in any sense just to have a show. I feel like if you meet me in person, other than the swearing, I'm the same in person as I am on the show. So it's just who I am. But I get where you're coming from, Clive. Things can only get better, which is, I have to say, without a doubt, at the moment is my favorite name to count who listens to us, by the way. It says, I couldn't believe how few subscribers Arsblog have. The visuals, I guess that, but at the end of the day, Andrew's fine. Andrew's very okay when it comes to his show. In fact, you might be seeing Andrew very, very soon on the channel. Looking forward to catching up with the big man. Paul says genuinity is used in some overseas territories. There you go. Maybe that's where I've got it from, but not here in the UK. So genuineness needs to be the word moving forwards. Silver Arrow says, Tom, my immersion has now been ruined thinking about that. Surely you don't swear normally. I mean, I'm not sitting here effing and blinding like every other word, but in a casual setting, and if I'm having a few beers with some friends, yes, I swear. I don't just not swear on here and then everywhere else I don't either. So Matthew says, what's your favourite swear word? I can't say it, Matthew. I can't tell you. I don't really have a favourite swear words. I like to treat everyone equally, and so therefore I like to treat every swear word as equally as well. I don't like to favour one over the other. Tip says, get that tie on. Uncle Clive is here. Jaco says, Tom, I used to be overly positive like you back when I was in my 30s. I'm 21. What? You'll see one day. How can you be 21 if you're saying back when you were in your 30s? Unless that was a typo. That made no sense. That made absolutely no sense whatsoever. What? Tom, I used to be overly positive like you back when I was in my 30s. I'm 21. You'll see one day. I don't get that. I'm so confused. Unless that's just a clear joke that I've missed. It's gone way over my head, mate. I'm really sorry. I don't understand that at all. The sarcasm has flown way over way over my head. And I feel like I'm like Mr. Sarcastic here, but that completely lost on me. Blackshine says, where does all the money from fines go, and who? I think it depends on the body, right? It depends on the authoritative body that that gives the fine out. So I imagine the fine goes to them. And I think, you think they would reinvest it. You'd hope into like grassroots, things like that. So maybe, stuff like that. So yeah, Pablo says Turkish is so negative. That particularly is the reason that he lost his job on AFC. I mean, one, that's speculation, and two, I don't know if it's a case of like we don't know the reason. So speculating like on why Turkish has gone is just not really okay, because you don't know that. There's been no clarification at all. So speaking in factual terms, as if something is the case, is just not all right ever. Imagine if someone was speaking about you in terms of something that isn't true and started, or we don't know to be true or whatever, just we have no information about the reality of a situation, and someone was speaking about you as if it was factual. It's just not all right. And it's all well and good saying, in my opinion, afterwards. I get that. But you've said it in the first instance like it's a fact, first of all. Second of all, I don't believe that can be the case at all. I struggle to believe that would be true, because if you look, I was only made aware of this by you guys in the chat box telling me, but I wasn't obviously familiar with the person who did that video that went a bit viral talking about, I only celebrate titles. But equally, I've been sent a video showing that the guy, is it Yardman, I think, has now got his own podcast with Robbie. So how can somebody be got rid of for supposedly, allegedly being too negative, and then a podcast be dedicated with someone who is also very arguably, in my opinion, pretty negative from the videos, the few videos I've been exposed to? So that doesn't make any sense, does it? There's kind of a confliction there, is there not? So I don't see how that makes too much sense. Yeah, exactly, Mike. You can think that's why someone's not there, but if you present it, you can't present it as a fact if you don't know it to be true. Exactly. Jaco says, Tom, you always ask for evidence when claims are made, and they should absolutely. I always say that if you're coming with accusations, you've got to back it up. You can't just come in with accusations about anyone without having something to back it up with. You just can't. You just cannot. It's not all right. Kingsley, and Kingsley would disagree with you and say that he doesn't feel that Turkish is negative. And, it's how you, and so does Kel, so already we're kind of getting a division of views on this. So yeah, there you go. Iron says, when the type of shows where vulgarity, violence becomes so much more popular and prevalent, sensitivity and censorship becomes very complex and toxic. That's kind of going to kind of very far end, of course, of the spectrum, isn't it? A very far end of the spectrum of it. But I see what you're saying, but that's obviously going to kind of the nth degree of it all. Snicker says, did you cook anything fun or new this weekend? I've been trying to perfect my fried rice all weekend. Well, good luck with that. I didn't, but the missus made chocolate banana bread for the first time, which was, I have to say, incredible. I mean, I'm not the baker. No matter what Mr. Benj thinks, I'm no baker, but I'm more of a cook than a baker. And we didn't, yesterday we went out for a roast yesterday. It was very nice. On Saturday, we had takeaway. We had basically a very chill weekend. Don't really get too many weekends together, me and the missus, these days, because obviously I work most weekends. So with it being the international break and me having 2 days off from work, and I'm off again today, some very smart use of my days off in the week. We just had kind of a chill weekend. She made chocolate banana bread, and it was fantastic. So, and Evan says, I know that Tom hates pancakes. I don't hate pancakes. I love them as equally as I do waffles. But if I like one over the other, for instance, if I did like pancakes, it doesn't mean that I hate waffles, and vice versa. You know how the game is played. Adnay says, can Arsenal afford to be patient with Gyökeres, or do we need another world-class 25-goal-a-season striker to win the league? They can absolutely be patient. They're sitting top of the table right now, and he's still adjusting. They've had a very difficult start to their games at the start of this season, and we sit top of the table. So I think that in itself answers your question, does it not? Matt G says, I don't understand why so many people are losing it over people leaving Arsenal Fan TV. People leave jobs all the time. Sometimes people just want a new challenge. It doesn't need to be a conspiracy. I love this sensible view from Matt. I really do. I love this sensible point of view. Why does everything have to be a conspiracy? I know from a journalistic point of view, I kind of want there to be a story because I look for stories. But why does everything have to be a conspiracy? Why does there always have to be an undercurrent to it? Why can't we just say they've left? Thanks for the memories. I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Why does there always have to be like a subtext to something? They won't be the first. They've not been the first. They won't be the last. And there'll be new people, and there'll be a churn. I'm still good friends with Lee. I'm still, who's still there. I'm still good friend. Whenever I see Robbie, I'm very, we just have a conversation because we're adults. We just have a chat about what's going on. I saw him at 10 Downing Street previously. It's the last time I think we had a one-on-one chat for the St. George's Day event. But I just don't really... I don't know why everything has to be turned into kind of why there has to be a subtext to it. The whole point of this conversation is that I enjoy this topic. I enjoy the topic of media. I enjoy the topic of fan media in particular. I enjoy the topic of the disdain that some people have for fan media and why they're so wrong. That's kind of where it's wrong. And to be fair, Turkish does fairly point out this time, other than the last comment that wasn't fairly pointed out, is that Turkish said it didn't end well. And that's, to be fair, he did. So I guess you can speculate, only speculate around that. And I guess, if I'm being honest, I guess if you're going to say it didn't end well and you're going to put that out there, maybe there is a responsibility to their add context, because it, I guess, generates speculation. But I think James obviously left and just said, thanks. Doesn't need to go into it, so we don't need to kind of question him on it. Same with Graham. I think Graham, when he tweeted out that I retweeted the other day, just said he loved his time there, had some great times there, moved on. So I don't think there needs to be any extra subtext to any of that beyond what we've kind of talked about there. Do you not think? So that's kind of where I'm at on that. We are going to carry on a little bit longer. I've still got 10 more minutes or so to take some. I've got a day off today, so I've got no time constraints. But that one thing I do want to point you in the direction of. I don't know if I'm going to put this up on the screen or not. I kind of want it because it's the pictures I find hilarious. But I have tweeted. I mean, you're going to see the picture anyway, I guess, if you go on the link. But a friend of mine is doing a brilliant thing for charity, and if you would like to go and help my friend Liam, who is doing through the month of October, a 5K run every single day. So he's going to be running 155 kilometers, which I think is the same as just over 3 marathons. I'm pretty sure, quite a bit over 3 marathons, I think. Is it 42 kilometers a marathon or so? So it's nearly 4 marathons worth over the course of this month of October. But he's doing it to raise money for Prostate Cancer UK. If you want to go and help Liam out, I really appreciate it. He was one of the best men at my wedding. He's a very close friend of mine. And if you want to go over and send in your help, there is a link in today's video description. I've also tweeted it out pretty much across all of my platforms. I put it on the blog as well, so you can go and check it out there. Let me just see if I am going to share it because I just think it's funny. It's a funny photo of all the photos he could have picked. Why has he chosen this one? I guess it's a photo of him running. I guess that, but he just looks so miserable, doesn't he? It's a great photo, Liam. I love it. But yeah, if you want to go and support Liam, please do. Even if it's just a £5, anything you can spare. He's got a £500 target. He's already hit 470. See if you can help him get to 500. That'd be great. Anything you can do to help. As I say, the link, you might have to refresh stream because it wasn't there at the start of the show, but it is there at the top of the description today. So go and check that out. If you will, I'll put another link to it in the chat box right now so you can click it there as well. But yeah, if Matthew says nobody looks good in running photos, my wife would attest to that. She hates being photographed when she's running, as she was during the London Marathon. But yes, go and check out that. Go into the link. Go and donate, please. Help Liam. It's a great cause, and he deserves all your backing that you can give him. So go and back him, please. Right, let's go to the chat box, shall we? And carry on with this. Laughing Man says, I don't listen to much Arsenal content except Arsenal Vision, Arseblog, Gooner Harry, Charles Watts, Adrian, Babs, Cannon, CS? Highbury scored? What's CS? This is really bad. Who's CS? What's that? I'm really bad with acronyms. It's going to be someone I'm really good mates with, isn't it? It's going to be really bad. Who's someone tell me who CS is? But also Highbury scored the Ludoguna, DT and Wizzy as well. Of course, Hugh Wizzy. Who's CS? No one's leaving a comment either, so I think they're equally as stumped at the moment. It's such a broad acronym. It could be anything. DJ says most important question is what takeaway did? Oh, we had a Chinese on Saturday, and it was great. We have a very good local Chinese takeaway here. Samuel says, Tom, on Arsenal content, I exclusively stick to podcasts such as yours, Arsenal Vision, Arscast, and Arsblog, and the Chronicles of a Gooner. I feel like I get enough enjoyable content that way. Well, thank you for that. It's very kind of you to say. Curtis, of course it's Curtis. And now everyone's saying Curtis. Yes, of course it's Curtis. Curtis Shaw as well, who's absolutely smashed it on his channel. Yeah, well, over 100,000 subs now he's got. He's doing very well. Samuel says, oh, how could I forget? I love Wiles chats too. Of course. We all love Wiles. We love Wiles. You can't not like Wiles. Wiles is great. He produces great content, does Wiles. So there you go. And Rosie says both James and Turkish began moving on to their future endeavors while still with AFTV. James in particular has moved on very successfully. I mean, his Gooniverse podcast is excellent. His podcast he does with Sharoy. I think Sharoy is great as well. He produces some great views. I think he's very balanced, very objective, and he's a good listener as well. And I've done a podcast with those two, and very welcoming indeed. You know, James has been here, so absolutely. Pablo says, "What's my opinion on Justin Kluivert? Underrated player, and I think should probably have earned a move in the summer. But Bournemouth are a very good club. Maybe I'm being too harsh on Bournemouth right now. I mean, they're doing some great things. They're already toward the top end of the Premier League table this season. Could be on for some European qualification." Despite the fact that they've lost Housen and who else did Bournemouth lose? Kepa in goals, gone. What's his name? Zabani, who's gone to PSG. And Kerkez, of course, as well. Gone. And they're doing excellent. So you've got to give all the credit in the world to Andoni Iraola, who's been a fantastic manager. Joshua says, do you reckon Kenan Yildiz is someone that we should be looking at? I mean, he's someone that Arsenal are looking at, as they are looking at loads of players. They scout hundreds of players. So no doubt they absolutely should be looking at him. But I know that they are looking at him alongside a lot of other players. Doesn't mean that anything's going to happen because they scout everyone. So there isn't a player on earth Arsenal are not aware of at that kind of level. There just isn't. Abdul says, I like consuming both sides of the fandom because it provides context. Much better than, say, only listening to Sky Sports, providing your only source of Arsenal content as well. I think that's the way to go. You know, I listen to people all the time that I don't necessarily agree with, but I listen to it so that I can get a broader kind of perspective on what people are talking about. You know, it'd be so insulated to just expose yourself to that in some ways. But also, I get when people only do want to listen to one type of content. I get that. But I'd hope that you think that we're kind of like, if there is a spectrum, I'd like to think we're closer to kind of the middle, where if there's a reason to criticize, we criticize. If there's a reason to be critical, to be praised, then we praise. But at the moment, and over the last 5 years, I don't think there's been too many reasons to not be praising. I've had some of the best time supporting Arsenal over these last 5 years, and I feel like we're heading in that direction towards winning the biggest and best trophies on offer. So maybe that's given it the perspective that we're very kind of skewed towards the positive, but that's because I think there is a reason to be. Equally, under Unai Emery, the channel was pretty negative because there was kind of a reason to be negative at that time as well, which I also think is worth pointing out. Shaya says you can sign either Yildiz or Semenyo in the summer. Which one would you choose? Probably Semenyo at the moment, which says a lot about how my view on him has shot up over the last few months, certainly. Granddaddy Gooner says, since my job changed, I don't have as much time to listen to or watch videos. So apart from you and Charles, who I listen to every day. The others I tend to pick a day and then keep with them. Maybe, it's totally on your own way of kind of how you absorb content. And only you can choose how you absorb it and whose content you do absorb. Hashtag Dennis says, I can't listen to a few people. I just can't. They don't even feel like Arsenal supporters. They're too negative, content to consume. It'll take away all the goods in you and drown yourself into theirs as well. Again, that's why you get to choose what you want to listen to. Matthew says, I listen to this and Adam Clary for general football analysis. Sometimes I'll watch Harry and Wiles as well. Absolutely. Fair play. I feel like we may be getting towards the end of today's show now. We're slowing down. Paul says, have any new injuries come out of the international so far? Nothing yet, touch wood, as far as I'm aware at least. So, again, positive at the moment. So hopefully that's going to be the case moving forwards. I'm just scrolling up a little bit to see if I did indeed miss anything while I was talking through the charity stuff. But Iron says, in the truest sense of it all, Arsenal just needs to win the next game. One by one, just keep those 3 points coming. And the rest of the opinions and will be secondary. Loss in turn, generative narrative. Adonai says, can Arsenal afford to be patient with Gyökeres, or do we need another world-class 25-goal-a-season striker to win the league? What is the best solution? I think we kind of touched on that earlier, didn't we? And I think, yes, we can be patient. Right, let's scroll back down now. Rene says, this is my only ritualistic channel. Wow. What a word. Ritualistic. Love it. I know I find respectful, honest commentary in here and a great chat box as well. See, Rene's being nice to you all in the chat as well, which is always nice. I always say I'm very proud of the community that we got here. I think it is without a doubt the best. And that's the only thing I will be, for the lack of a better word, arrogant about. But the chat box, I always think this is brilliant. I love it. I love the community we got here. And when we do our live shows, which I hope to have more information about in the relative near future, but it might take a little bit of a while longer than it did in the last couple of years to sort out this time around with still logistics and stuff. It might not be February's time. It might be a little later. But again, I'm not 100% sure yet. We're still working out a few things. Omar says, it's reality, though. Arsenal cause a lot of pain and hardship as well. Yeah, for sure. And I get that. And there are times where you can be like critical. It's not to say that you can't be critical when talking about Arsenal. That's not the message. What we've kind of discussed today is the level of hyperbole and exaggeration that goes alongside it. I mean, I think short form content has been a great thing, but at the same time, short form content in a way has promoted this idea of the quick clip, the quick get, the clippable content. It's a great way of expanding and growing a channel and exposing yourself to more of a bigger audience. But there's no doubt in my mind that short form content as well has generated a much greater desire for poking the bear, as I say, is the phrase I kind of want to use. So yeah, that's that for me. That's the double-edged sword of short form TikToks, Instagram Reels. You know, if you look at the Reels on the Instagram that I've launched recently, I love doing the behind the scenes stuff for you. I love showing you as much as I can, the match day vlogs, some discussion stuff. I've not done as much discussion stuff because I kind of think that the niche of the Instagram at the moment is kind of the behind the scenes stuff. So yeah, look, that's kind of where I'm at on that. And Raf says, I watched this Arsenal Vision podcast, Arseblog and Wiles. Hard to keep up with more than that. Rage betting content just riles people up. Yeah, absolutely. Right. We nearly hit an hour, so I think we're going to wrap things up there. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. It's been an interesting topic of discussion today. I think we've covered a lot of topics. I've covered a lot of ground on this topic, and I hope it's maybe it's changed your mind about some stuff. Maybe it's made you think harder about this stuff. As I say, it's important not to speculate about certain things. It's always important to get the facts first, and hopefully, if there is, some allude to what has gone on, that you do get that more information. I do feel there's a little bit of a responsibility, maybe, if you're going to allude to it. I think that's clear. But at the same time, it's important not to speculate. It's important not to talk as if something is a fact when it's not. until you get all the information that you need to get. But thank you so much, as always, for tuning in and listening. It's good to be back. It's good to have a break. It's good. I feel recharged. I feel ready to go for this new week, ready ahead to the next game and the press conference on Friday and Fulham on Saturday. Enjoy yourselves. Have a fantastic start to your week. Stay safe. Stay well. Stay happy and respectful. I'll be on with Dan Potts at 11 o'clock. So join me there if you have indeed an hour free then. See you soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.